Animal Connections, learning to speak the amazing language of animals with your host, André Shirley.
I did a second course with Amelia Kincaid in 2009 and found her a totally opposite character from my first teacher. She was more flamboyant, dramatic and outspoken. She also conveyed messages from her animal connections as flamboyant as she was. This got me thinking. Different people have different characters. It is the same with animals. They all have their own individual personalities. So if Amelia portrays her connections with animals as outgoing and flamboyant, is this because they actually talk to her thus? Or is it just her interpretation of them? When I look at my talks with animals, their answers come back to me as no fuss, no frills, straight to the point. This is exactly as per my personality. So I guess the answer is, the animals either adapt to the style that grabs your attention, or the humans interpret it as their personality. For this session, I thought I would quote from one of Amelia's brilliant books, Straight from the Horse's Mouth. It is described as a first-time guide for those who wish to talk to animals, and I recommend it thoroughly. The first excerpt describes Amelia's thoughts about the first class she attended on her personal journey. The header is, "The class that changed my life," and I quote, "The first volunteer was a big chow-type dog. The exercise went something like this. The teacher would call out a series of questions we were supposed to mentally ask the dog, and we'd write down the very first answer that flew into our heads. The morning's lecture had been about telepathy, sending and receiving mental pictures. I had tried to absorb the idea, but it all seemed so abstract. I could have listened all day, but what could I do? I was tense. The test questions were fairly rudimentary. The first being, what's your favorite food? Gladys instructed the class to pretend we were the dog while envisioning an empty bowl in front of us. Then with our mind's eye, we were to visualize what we'd like the bowl to be filled with. The answer hit me like a gangbusters. I heard the word inside my head, spaghetti and meatballs. I struggled to make a mental picture of a dog's bowl, but I could see nothing but a dinner plate piled high with spaghetti and meatballs. A few moments of silence followed before Gladys asked the students what we got. Everyone else produced the more practical answers like beef, chicken and kibble. My demons of doubt started to pick me apart. I must have just made it all up in my mind. I have to be wrong. Why was my answer so ridiculous when everyone else was so obviously right? I sank down low in my seat. Finally, Gladys asked me what I got. I mumbled sheepishly, spaghetti and meatballs. The dog's guardian squealed, "Yes, that's exactly right. Spaghetti and meatballs is her favorite food. She ate a whole plate of it last night." As you can see, the answer you get back from your animal friend might not be what you expect. So a lot of the learning curve is to also trust what you get back and not double guess it. During the chat, just take note of what you get back. Later it can be analyzed or slept over. I find a good night's rest brings a lot of clarity on the puzzle. The following iguana story shows us how the human mind needs to learn how to interpret what we get back from the animal. And sometimes it will only make sense after the event. Or maybe never. I got a call from a lovely conscientious client, Peggy, who complained that her rescued iguana, Stan, had completely stopped eating. Peggy was in a panic because Stan appeared to be starving. I had been a professional animal communicator for several years by the time I received this call, but I had never talked to a reptile, and frankly I knew less than nothing about iguanas. Because I had no knowledge of their diets or habits or any of their requirements, I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to communicate blindly. Peggy had taken Stan to several vets who apparently knew even less about iguanas than I did. Poor Peggy had been unable to get the diagnosis on him, and what few suggestions she had been given weren't working. Stan simply would not eat. I asked, "Stan, I understand you aren't eating. What would you like to eat?" With this question, I pictured that Stan was happily eating something delicious. I heard the words banana candy. Banana candy. I saw in my mind's eye little chunks of dried banana. Peggy confirmed that the only food Stan would eat was called monkey chow, composed of dry bananas. I was so relieved I had actually made contact with the iguana. When asked what else we could do to improve his overall health, Stan sent me a shiver of coldness and a feeling of claustrophobia. His legs ached to run. He wanted to be out in the sunshine where he could walk freely, not have his motion checked in the cramped aquarium. I thought nothing more of this request to walk freely and foolishly discounted it. After all, what iguanas wouldn't rather be outside walking in the sunshine? "What can we do about your health, Stan? What's wrong with you? Are you so unhappy about your living conditions that you want to starve yourself to death?" With that, Stan sent me a profound feeling of love for his human mother and told me his life with her was much better than it had been before she came to it. Peggy agreed she had rescued him from a terrible situation, and that for a time he'd been eating content. Stan was even becoming more tame and affectionate, allowing her to pick him up. But then suddenly he had changed. I tried one more time. "Stan, why won't you eat?" Here's where my interpretation went airy. When Stan showed me the inside of his stomach, I saw bunches of gelatinous marbles covered with thin skins in his belly. "Have you tried grapes?" I asked Peggy. "He's showing me green grapes. You might try feeding him some grapes." Next day, Peggy called to say Stan wouldn't eat the grapes. Baffled and disappointed, I gave up. For the next few days, I moped and muttered to myself about reptiles being too difficult to understand. Thank God, shortly after our conversation, Peggy finally found a vet who knew something about iguanas and received an accurate diagnosis. Excited, she called to tell me the news. First of all, Stan was a girl. This was a fact none of the other vets had seen, and obviously Stan failed to mention it to me. Second, Stan was pregnant. The vet said Stan's infatuation for a new guardian had caused her to create a false pregnancy. Not only was Stan a pregnant female lizard, Stan was a pregnant female lesbian lizard. Furthermore, the vet said iguanas had extremely long pregnancies lasting for months, during which they refused to eat. They lay their eggs while walking. Because Stan was so full of eggs and she couldn't walk in her cramped cage, she was about to pop. Peggy said that Stan had finally managed to walk around the cage, squeezing out a few eggs. And guess what they looked like? Small green grapes. So you see, Stan's information was crystal clear. She had held up her end of the conversation beautifully. She had told me, "I'm in love with my mother, I've got a belly full of grapes and I need to take a walk." I was the one who fouled up by misinterpreting the information. Also dotted throughout this book are small exercises like meditation, clearing out negative vibrations, connecting spiritual guides and other useful tools to help you. One of my favorites is where you have to pretend to be a dachshund. Think about it for a minute. If you were a small dog, how close to the floor would you be? Do you see things in the room in the same perspective as a 6-foot human being? In my opinion, it would be quite scary having towering humans above me. What if they don't see me and trip over me? Or when they suddenly bend down and rip me off the floor for a cuddle? The sudden change in altitude might make me dizzy or give me altitude sickness. Do I like being stuffed in a carrier or plonked in a bath all of a sudden? What if we were walking through knee-high grass? For us it is knee-high, but for small dogs it's a jungle and difficult to get through. This exercise does two things. One, it makes one more considerate towards our non-human companions. And two, it makes one think of their perspective in the household. Sometimes humans don't ever realize how close their non-human companions are to them. I found horses to be particularly strong in their closeness to humans. I know a horse talker who can jump his horses through intricate jumps and obstacles by just looking at the next due jump. No bits to lead the horse, just eyes and talking. And the horse outperforms any other horse concerning clearing the jumps in record times. He and his horse won many a competition until the horse authorities made it illegal to compete without a bit. He calls himself a horse talker because whispering is for secrets. For non-horsey people, the bits are the metal devices inside the very soft horses' mouths that the rider uses to steer or stop the horse. Not pleasant at all for the horse, and in actual fact, horses do much better when the rider uses non-bitted bridles or neck straps. I, for one, am happy to see a lot more riders moving towards a bitless society. Back to the book, here's an example of a songwriter and her bond with her horse. I quote, I took a trip to a ranch in Santa Barbara to meet a horse named Apollo and his person Daphne. As Daphne walked me past the pens towards a stunning Palomino show horse, all the other horses walked towards me and leaned out over the fence. They called to me as I passed. Candace, Mary, they cried. Who's Candace? I asked Daphne. She's a troublemaker who owns one of the horses, Daphne answered. Her horse must have loved her anyway, to have hoped I was she. Who's Mary? I asked. She was only here for about a month, and that was quite a while ago. Evidently, Mary had made quite an impression on one of these horses. When I met Apollo and rubbed his nose, I didn't open with my usual food question, because horse feed is pretty similar. Although apples, carrots and molasses are often mentioned with great excitement. I had some carrots on hand to use as a bribe. Apollo, what do you really like? I asked. She sings me a song about a bird, Apollo answered. I was surprised that such a general question would merit such a specific answer. I gave Daphne the message and asked her what she did for a living. I write music, she replied. Is this the song? If I sing it, will he be able to tell you which one it is? She asked. Apollo said yes. She began to sing a beautiful song. He didn't interrupt her but waited politely until she stopped singing. Is that it? She asked. Nope, he answered. I saw the flashing images of people flying through the air, birds and finally a baby. He produced the rhythm of a driving beat. Tell her it's the one about the people in the sky, he said. Rather reluctantly I told her, he says it's a song about a bird or people in the sky, flying people. It's a more up-tempo. Daphne was perplexed. People in the sky? What does that mean? Suddenly a wave of recognition swept over her face. Oh my God, I know this one. There's only one line about a bird. It's about two lovers who die and meet again in heaven. People in the sky, I said with a sigh. I marveled at the incredible horse logic. As Daphne sang, Apollo was absolutely elated. Yes, that's it, he said proudly. I helped her write it. She wrote it on my back. She agreed that she did her best writing while riding. Another tip for people is that even if you don't understand your animal companion, he understands you perfectly. If they don't comply with what you're asking, then rethink how you ask. Much like the law of attraction, if you ask your dog not to walk through a puddle, and he then walks through the puddle, there could be two reasons. One, he wants to walk through the puddle because it's fun. So let him have some fun, even if it means you have to wash him off later. Or two, he walked through the puddle because you said, don't walk through the puddle. He does not register the word don't. All he hears is walk through the puddle. To which he replies, thank you very much. This is going to be fun. If you then start shouting at him, he will be confused. Try a different approach. Try running in the opposite direction or throw a ball away from the puddle, anything to distract him. Sometimes the translation of what we receive could be very literal. and for a human difficult to understand. My suggestion again is to write down everything you get, even if it sounds far-fetched. If you ponder over it a while later, the true answer might pop up. And always try to think of it from the animal's perspective. They might never have seen certain things on this planet. A good example I can recall is one time when I noticed my 4 horses stand to attention, ears pricked forwards towards the fence line, nostrils big and every muscle tense. I asked what they were seeing and got nothing. They had no words to describe what they had seen, just big eyes. I walked over to them and looked in the direction they were focused on. All I could see were trees and bushes. But there was obviously something out there. I walked closer to the fence and boom! A great big elephant moved and made her presence known. I started laughing. The horses had never encountered an elephant before, and here we had 14 of them right on the other side of the fence, a mere 30 meters away. I decided to introduce them to elephants, walked closer while calling the horses to follow. Big-eyed and snorting, they followed a little bit, then stopped. I stopped too and told them all is good. These elephants are on the other side of the fence. They cannot come through, so don't be afraid. I walked on a bit again, horses followed. Then it just became too much. They decided no, these big grey beings are huge and weird, and we're taking off in the opposite direction. Don and I had a good giggle. To illustrate another weird translation, here's an extract of humans getting weird readings from dogs. "Silver!" one woman cried out. She had no idea what she was talking about. Her courage was astounding. "Silver! Oh my God, that's what I got too!" cried another brave student. We were sitting around a blanket on a balmy horse ranch in Coronado last April, the week after Easter. 17 people were learning to telepath with animals for the first time in their lives. The subject was Patricia, a dappled floppy-eared poodle, who luxuriated in a wicker basket in the middle of our circle. I had suggested that the students ask the dog, "What's your favorite food?" Although most of us agreed on beef or liver, when the 2 students cried out, "Silver!" Patricia's human mother got a smile on her face and she could barely contain it. "It must be a fish because it looks like silver scales," one of the women rationalized. Her left brain kicked in to try to analyze what her right brain was doing. No, Silver is right," Patricia's mother broke her vow of silence. She explained, "Patricia stole a bunny out of my daughter's Easter basket and ate the entire thing. It was wrapped in silver tinfoil." We all gasped. The information was right on target. How about we start your journey here and now? Try and connect with your animal in a few simple steps. Start with images, as are usually the easiest to read. You can find a quiet space with your friend or even away from your friend. You don't have to be close to each other. Sit up straight and comfortable and start breathing deeply. Breathe in and fill your lungs from top to bottom. Hold for a second, then breathe every last breath out. Breathe in again, and on the next breath out, imagine you are breathing out any and all darkness, worries and stress. Every set of breaths, the darkness gets less and light starts taking its place. You should be able to do this in 3 breaths, but keep going until there's only light in you. It shines out of you and illuminates everything around you. Your friend is bathed in this light too. Now send him the message, "I love you." Send it from your heart to his. Imagine a connection between your heart and his. You will feel him respond when you send love. No rush, just keep breathing deeply. When you are ready, ask him something simple. You might want to start with asking what his favorite toy or food is. As soon as you've asked it, the answer will come in a flash. Sometimes I get it before I have completed the thought. Trust it. Don't second guess it. You can analyze it later if it does not make sense. End the session by thanking your friend, sending him more love, and come back to the current time and space. Then, if your friend is nearby, you can go fetch his favorite toy or meal as per the message you got and treat him. Never promise something if you cannot keep your promise. And if you don't get anything the first time, try again a few days later, or find a mentor that can teach you. It does take practice. Also, it is advisable not to start with anything that has pain or anxiety attached to it. For example, if your pet is ill or lost, your emotions at this point in the communication learning curve is too fragile to handle it, and you won't be able to get clear answers. For this, it's best to ask an experienced communicator to help. In closing, here's a short chat I had with a feisty cat that went missing. His human had contacted me as she was worried about her missing kitty, as it's been a few days already, and he's never ventured away from home before. It's a good place to note here that cats love exploring, and domestic ones usually end up missing at least once in their lifetimes. But missing is the wrong terminology. The cat usually knows exactly where it is. It's the human that thinks it's missing. And it is almost like a coming of age for the cat to go out in the big world to explore. Some do it for longer periods than others. To talk to the correct animal, I always request a photo. I then take a few very deep breaths, become quiet, send the animal love, and then start chatting. Hello, beautiful. Do you mind having a chat with me? Not at all. Go ahead. Your human's worried because you're not home, so she asked me to check in with you. Tell her not to worry. I'll be back soon. That's good to hear. Do you know how to get back home, or do you need help with that? I know perfectly well how to get back home. I'm glad to hear that. Where are you getting your food and water from? There's lots of scraps in the bins, and I've caught a rat as well. I get water from puddles in the road. How far are you from home? Oh, about 3 blocks away, but it depends because I move around. Why did you go on this walkabout? It was calling me. What was calling you? Deep down inside me, there is something that says it's time to go exploring. What do you want me to report back to your human? That I'm fine, I'm having fun, she should not worry, I'll be back soon. During the conversation, I can usually see the environment through the animal's eye, like the surrounding houses, style of building, whether it's a residential neighborhood, shops, schools or factories. We can go into really fine detail, like the house brickwork or the roof color, trees in the yard, or any pertinent features if we are trying to guide a human to the lost pets area. I can also feel the excitement and him taking in all the new wonders he's discovering. With this kitty, I could actually see the puddles and environment the cat was in. It looked like the road was next to a small wilderness area with palisade fencing, and cat wandered in and out of this area as he pleased. In this case, Kitty knew where he was and promised to be home soon. And true to his word, this kitty returned 2 days later, no worse for wear.
You've been listening to Animal Connections with host André Shirley. To connect with André or to check out our other shows, head to lifesource.global. And don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and share buttons. This show is brought to you by Sourcelight Productions.